welcome to Through the Mist with me, your host, Owen. This is a Royal University podcast where we look at the law and try to understand how it all works. In this episode, we'll be looking at Kane Magic. Yes. Well done, guys. Well done. GG's. Good game. Cheers. Thanks for playing. Thanks for coming along. See ya. Bye. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Oh. Hello. Didn't notice you guys there. How are you doing? Welcome back. Ooh. Ee. But yeah, you just caught me at the end of the game. What game? You can decide. Hi. We're recording an episode, Owen. You can't just say yes, hi, hello 50,000 times. So, you may be wondering and going, Owen, hang on. There seems to have been a pattern when a new book has been released. Is you've done a theory about said book, and if it wasn't the month it came out, it was the month afterwards. And, well, you see, it's not this time. I didn't have any ideas for a theory based on Chalice of the Gods. Nothing went. Do you know what I really need to know? Nothing. No questions. I still love the book, but no major outstanding questions, you know? Which I guess is a bit weird, but who cares? So don't worry, you're not going to get spoiled, guys. Whoop whoop. No spoilers. However, we do have a question. As per usual, I put out a question to the lot of you, try and get answers. And we got an answer from the usual suspect. I'm not going to name them this time because... And the question was, what makes gods gods? You know, what is gods gods? So the usual suspect replied, I don't think the gods in the Voidiverse are real. At least not real in the sense that the ocean or war or love or wisdom are real things. I think the gods in the Voidiverse only exist / have power and influence because they were conceived by humans to explain the ocean or war or love or wisdom. Essentially, these gods are the same and as real as money or stories. What makes the gods gods is that they were spoken into existence by humans who said they mattered. And yeah, I think there's a complication. Like, you're not wrong at all. And we have said on this podcast that the whole Voidiverse basically exists as an expression of human stories, and they represent collective consciousness. Like, they reflect that. Like, yeah, they reflect the stories, they reflect the times. They're kind of a bit of a reflection of the collective set of beliefs, but also founded in a very particular thing. The complication can arise when you've got other spirits and beings that also kind of came into being in the same way. But I think, yeah, I think a good way is if you're trying to ask why, and you can answer it with a god, or you can answer it with a being, then the being is a god. I think that is a good way of looking at it. I think there are still some grey areas which I don't have, which can be annoying. That's everything. Thank you to the usual suspect. Catch you guys on the flip side. Welcome to the flip side. Yes, so this time around we are going back to the world of the Kane Chronicles and doing Kane Magic 2.0. What was it? What was the one I did before? I've done another 2.0 before. I've done monsters before and magical items. I did magical items 2.0 and I redid monsters again, haven't I? That's the two I've done before. So it's the same principle, much more closer to magical items than monsters, but now I've just got the Superman theme in my head. Yeah, so we are going to go through you wonderful Mr. Buster's suggestions of things we can look at and break them down, see if we can answer the questions. I enjoy doing this stuff because to be honest, it's less thinking on my part and I just have to go, I just do the research side of it. I don't have to think of the idea to research, which is like, I have a list, but sometimes you look at the list and you're a bit like, ugh, with it. Basically, we've got 2 topics, 3 questions, but 2 kind of major topics that we're going to break it down into. So we'll start with the easier one, which is God hosting. So this has come through from both Megs and Katie, where Meg says that hosting, is it pure choice or is there something else? And Katie has asked, can mortals host gods? Note their exact wording when they ask these questions may have changed because I just wrote down in notes so I would remember. I think a good place to start with this and the Kane Chronicles is to try and identify the difference between hosting a god and what is known as Path of the Gods, because I think that's kind of where Meg's question is originating from. So the Path of the Gods is the magical studies that take place in which a magician calls upon the power of the gods. So this can often lead to hosting a god, but it's a mutual partnership and where the magician becomes what is known as the eye of the god. Both Sadie and Carter become this. They become like true eyes of the god. Whereas hosting is quite literally just the god being tethered to something. We can answer Katie's question quite quickly and simply by going, yes, anything can host a god. Set has the red pyramid. Bast has Sadie's cat, whatever that's called, I can't remember. So like, you can make the leaps that a morsel can, host a god. And it's like, also, there's a question about what a magician is and Blood of the Pharaohs. But, that's being parked for now. But Meg's question does have a little more nuance in it. So just if you're talking about pure hosting and stuff, there is no limit. Like, any god can host anything. But becoming an eye of a god in hosting, yes, there is a bit of something else to that. So the Path of the Gods, the Path of the Gods is a choice. You can pick whichever god you like, but being able to fully embrace that god more than just, I like that, needs to be true. And the best place to see this is with Zaya and Nephilis versus Zaya and Ra. So water versus fire. Zaya just generally is more proficient in fire magic than water magic. And when a water goddess tries to host in her, it doesn't end well for the goddess. They almost reject each other. If the goddess was more powerful or Zaya was less powerful, it wouldn't matter because the water goddess could overwhelm Zaya. But due to the power levels and like internal strength, it's a lot harder to control. So some gods just they don't vibe with their host and it doesn't hold very well. But hosting can be done by anyone. Just to have a good host takes more, and it is very much internal strength and internal and just what you're naturally better at or what you've leaned towards more, because you could be very good at many things but you focus more in one area, which makes you better in that area for hosting a god reasons. Yeah, that kind of sums everything up with god hosting. So we'll move on to option. We're now going to be looking at elemental magic. So when we say elemental magic, we're going to be talking about the basic elements, which are
water, earth, fire, air.
Cheese.
Whoa! Wallace, what are you doing here, mate? What are you chatting? Cheese can't be one of them.
Not even Wensleydale.
Hey, what the skitty? Hey. Yes, so this comes from Darian, and it is all about the cheese.
Cheese?
Yeah. So there's a joke in the book that says the 5 elements are earth, water, air, fire, and cheese. But that has like random throwaway lines that have major lore implications. Like major lore implications. So how the heck is cheese a fundamental element? So it's like, so many questions, and I'm being honest, this was a fun one to do. I don't think it's a very satisfying outcome, but still fun. Yeah, so the first thing I did to help solve this problem was I Googled ancient Egypt cheese. Like that phrase, that is what I Googled. Just started off basic as I could. And I came across a BBC News article. Other news sites are available. So it was about the first ever discovery of cheese in ancient Egypt. And it will also happen to be the oldest cheese of all time ever discovered. What oldest cheese of all time? It was found in 2018 and was dated to be 3,200 years old. 3,200-year-old cheese. Cheese! That cheese has been aging. Aging like fine cheese. Apparently, it was made from sheep and goat's milk, and it is believed that it would have like a really, really acidy bite. They also found evidence of brucellosis, which comes from unpasteurized milk, and if it's true, if it can be confirmed that people got this from like the little bacteria that lives in cheese, it would possibly be the oldest case of that ever in the world. I also came across a different cheese of a similar discovery, but dating back only 2,600 years. But this time it was called, like it was labelled, the cheese was actually labelled as a type of cheese, and it was labelled as halloumi, which is a Cyprus creation. So, questions about ancient Egypt and cheese, and if cheese was just an imported thing, or if they actually made cheese. But there is other evidence of them actually making their own cheese, not just importing it, because there has been discovered a similar pot to what is currently used to make what in modern times is known as mish, which is an Egyptian cheese. So the ancient times having similar pots would imply that mish is a very traditional Egyptian cheese. So they did have cheese. However, I found all this fascinating. But again, it doesn't really help with the question of why cheese is one of the 5 basic elements. Like, besides it just being a joke for kids, as Darian stated, like, why? It doesn't help answer why, because it doesn't seem Egypt had a very strong connection with the cheese, The cheese in it didn't really... So we're going to take a little different sort of approach. And that approach is to look at the 4 elements themselves. Yeah, that approach is to look at the 4 basic elements themselves. So, we're gonna see if we can work out why they were defined as the basic elements and apply the same logic to cheese. Why not? I mean, it's the most scientific way I can think of making this work. If you've got any better ideas, I'm all ears, baby, all ears. So yeah, so researching the basic elements, it seems a lot of cultures had this idea of basic elements. And a lot of the time, they were always earth, water, fire, air. There also seemed to be a 5th one that appeared in a lot of places, being the void, or I think in Japanese it's metal, from memory, from looking at the thing I saw. But, the 4 basics, it's a perpetual idea. But to help narrow down the origin of this idea, we're going to look at it in form of the origin in Greek antiquity, because the Greeks are just on the other side of the sea. The Indians are a bit further away. It would assume that proximity would increase influence or sharing, that's true. That makes perfect sense. And also, as an English speaker, it's probably also the easiest for me to research. But, we're doing it for logical reasons, and as the Greek and Egyptian culture shared, at least culture interacted a fair bit. So, what about the 4 elements? Well, this guy called Thales of Miletus was like the water guy. He was like, water is clearly where everything's come from. And so apparently they never themselves wrote about it. But Aristotle, reverse engineered like their idea. Which when I was doing this research and wrote that sentence, I was like, wow, that is very much what this podcast is. Rick has an idea and I reverse engineer to make it work. Like, Rick says something, I'm going to reverse engineer that to make it work. It's basically what I do. What this idea that Aristotle wrote down kind of stated was, presumably he derived this assumption from seeing that everything is moist. Like, everything starts from a moist place. And that heat itself is generated from moisture and depends upon it for existence. And because, everything is moist, then from that, then if you go back to first principles, therefore everything is water, That's kind of how it works. We had someone else, an Anaximus of Miletus. Oh, they're the same place. Was like, air's the thing, guys. I have no idea what you're on about. Air's the thing. And it kind of seemed to add on to Thales' idea a bit, but instead it was looking at the water cycle. And Aristotle, again, broke it down into basically being that he proposed that each substance is created by condensation to increase density of the air, or ratification, so the opposite, to decrease it. So basically, because water goes, steam falls in rain, therefore, if it can't be water that's the base element, it's got to be air that's the base element. Everything has got to be air. And to be honest, it's probably the most correct out of all of them. Everything is kind of air. Everything's plasma, and then there's space, and we'll get to that. Maybe not. I may be deciding against my own theory, but at the same time, not wrong. So, and Aristotle seemed to be like the only one telling us that this is the way. This is the way. Once again, gives a different dude called Heraclitus, that said fire or maybe heat. It's a bit debated whether the translations are that good. Was the creation of everything. There's someone that's translated it into fun English again. So this world order, the same of all. No god nor man did create, but if ever was and is and will be ever living fire, kindling in measure and being quenched in measure. Basically, everything's hot, bruv. Everything is hot, my boy. Hot, hot, hot. I don't really know, but this dude said it. Aristotle said this dude said it. Aristotle was too big to Google about. Doesn't really matter. You kind of get the idea. These ancient philosophers, when we're going to have to work out where everything came from, and these guys came up with ideas, and Aristotle wrote all the ideas and said, what if all of them are true? So there is, however, this other guy. Because I couldn't find any guy for Earth. I couldn't. There seemed to be no guy for Earth. So I don't know where Earth came from. But that doesn't matter. Because really there's this other guy called Anaxiander. Amexiander. Like Alexander, but with a mx in it. Amex in it. Amex. I don't know. Who thought that it was apion or void, chaos even. That, again, Aristotle talked about, because Aristotle basically, I think, kind of went, Aristotle got all these ideas and said, what if they are true? And then the rest of human history or the Western science went, yes, it's true. We're going to invent a whole discipline off this called chemistry, until one guy finds out that they're wrong because oxygen. I remember learning about when we first discovered our elements. So hydrogen, helium, sodium. They're the top three. What's next? No, I can't remember. I used to know like the first few. I'm pretty sure sodium's number 3. Sodium's number 3, right? Periodic table. Why do I have no service on my phone? Oh, I knew it was a B. Oh, and I got sodium in the wrong place. Damn it. Hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine. What's Ne? Ne is neon. Sodium, magnesium. Oh, shucks. Anyway, before we discovered that they existed, apparently there's people that have said, this idea ruined science because basically every big discovery found has basically been going, yeah, these guys are wrong. So thanks, Aristotle. Yeah, so the big one, really, that come out of this is there's this fifth element that I think Avatar The Last Airbender kind of has made people forget about as one of the base elements. Because, you know...
Water. Earth. Fire. Air.
With the Greeks, this fifth element was basically all about space, as in the big black void, as in the final frontier. And the gods and how they came from their place in the world was like the void or like nothingness, like sky, space. So the obvious thing to do here is we have a fifth element of the void and we have the fifth element of cheese. Now, what if cheese is an allegory for the void? Cheese, allegory for the void. What do you think? Yeah. I'm not a poet. But that's my answer. Is cheese is an allegory for the void? Someone else can come up with how cheese is an allegory for the void, but
Lovely cheese. Grommet. That's it. Cheese. Cheese, Lancashire, Cheddar, Wensleydale, Philadelphia, Tesco's. I don't know, lad. It's like no cheese I've ever tasted. Get off me, cheese! I'm just crackers about cheese.
cheese.
Cheese?
Thank you for indulging this theory. If you have any comments on this theory or theories of your own that you want me to discuss, you can email them through drew.t.me@gmail.com, or you can follow the Instagram @drew_myth and DM me there. Make sure to follow the podcast, rate the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, whatever you have to do to help get the podcast out there. I've been Owen. Come back next time as we try to see through the mist. I really hope my edits work. I really hope.